Everybody. Yeah, I'm Tim Douglas. I work in the art department for Off-World Industries on Squad. Been here since the start of the project. Yeah, mostly do the stuff you're listening from me is just some guns, vehicles, small props, but mostly weapons and vehicles. That's about me.
Hey gang, you should be able to hear me now. Sorry about that. Thank you for letting me know. Hopefully you were able to hear Tim introduce himself. I was just kind of introducing the squad chat prior to that, letting people know what we're up to. But as you can see, we're here today with Tim Douglas, one of our artists from Off the World Studios, who works, as he puts it, on some of the guns and other things that make Squad kind of amazing. Um, what is your most recognizable piece in game right now? What would you say if you had to point out to somebody what you had done recently?
Probably the Bradley is worked on the last big thing that most people have seen in the last patch, and a lot of people have been enjoying those new vehicles. Before that, did the MTLB vehicles, PKM, PKP, SPG, ZSU, stuff. I can't remember now, but yeah, that's
Yeah,
stuff. You'll probably seen those stuff in game if you play Squad. So
I would hope you have at least seen some Bradleys out there.
yeah.
That was a relatively new addition and something that was kind of cool. It came alongside the Warrior. Was there anything kind of uniquely challenging about the Bradley that made it come to life?
Um, a bit of a challenge for me actually. That vehicle, most of these ones are now they're entering cycle and they keep adding packages on packages and packages to try and keep them going. Um, so you really got to get in the weeds to know which is like A1 version 2 or whatever of that vehicle and what they've added, and really got to get into and find out what's the right stuff you've got to be making for it. So yeah, that vehicle had a ton of armor packed onto it, kit bolted on that just took a long time to come together. But it was fun. A bit of a challenge for me, but I really enjoyed it. It came out quite good in the end.
So yeah, that's kind of one of the newest things with you. But how long have you been with Squad? Or Off-World,
Since
as
the
more particularly?
yeah, with Offworld since the start of the project. I was originally contacted by a guy called Ancient Man who ran Project Reality for my time with Project Reality, and Merlin, who's on our project. Come with those guys earlier when they were starting to put something together. At that time, I was in my second year of university, and having all that free student time, it was just perfect for me. So yeah, a lot of guys had commitments when they started and stuff like that, but for me, it was just jumping in straight away.
Right on. So your kind of gaming history and goes back to Project Reality. It's like Battlefield, kind of the where your home is in terms of FPS gaming.
Absolutely. Yeah, big Battlefield fan. Started with 1942, huge Battlefield 2 player. About Project Reality, I really got stuck into that. Started with Project Reality when it was really the 0.25 mini mod or whatever it was in 2005 or 6. Stuff, and got in with a big clan and every weekend, and just been playing it ever since. Really, still now. So a long time.
Yeah, so yeah, that's really cool. So you've kind of been there along with like Chuck, watching the actual visual fidelity of the game grow under your hands. How did you get into art? Was it something? Was it a modding path? Was it something you took on as like a career choice? Or
I wanted it to do as a career as well, but I really got started with another friend. We actually started a mod for the Company of Heroes games, a mod called Eastern Front, which you can find on Steam and stuff still now. I think it was the biggest Company of Heroes mod in the end, and they Company of Heroes 2, they copied a lot of stuff we did on that. So it's pretty successful. But a guy really took me under his wing on that. I was friends with him and just said, oh, like, this looks cool, making some of the stuff. me how to 3D model a few things. Really terrible. I was just making really basic stuff, and then he started teaching me some Photoshop, and eventually I had a few things going in that, and then see the whole time, and I kind of drifted towards that and looking for a lot of what those guys were doing. I really want to be able to make something like that, and just slowly trying to get better and better. I started doing some of the, I think it's like the Australian faction for Project Reality needed someone helping, like the community stuff. They needed some things finishing, so done it that way. And that's usually how most of the people do it. They volunteer to help make a map or help with a faction or something like that, and the dev team absorbs them usually if they're doing good. So
yeah, we have definitely seen that with as an ongoing thing with Squad too, having hired a lot of the community. We got Assy and Virus doing some QA work, and Axton and Chance, and a lot of those folks that did come out of directly doing the same things. I'm kind of talking about how you get started. Uzgu had a question. I'm not sure if you said it already, but what art do you do? 3D models, textures, animation? You touched on it a little bit, but yeah, like what's your focus?
So I do the 3D and 2D. So that's modeling something, and then you unwrap it, and then you texture it. I don't do any of the animation. That's all Chuck and Cab. So like an art asset, kind of from start to finish. Chuck or Cab will do the animation usually, and for vehicles, some of the other developers usually do the implementation of that. We usually hand it off, and the sort of in-game tweaking and all the setup and stuff like that.
Cool. I'm actually kind of curious because I don't ever really get to see it, and a lot of us don't.
Right.
You know, you have your own workflow. Like, what tools are you using? What does it look like from your end?
So most of us use a program called 3ds Max for the modeling. There's a whole array of sort of small tools and programs we use for odds and ends, but Photoshop, Painter, stuff like that, they're pretty industry standard sort of things. Most of the workflows are really a team effort. You know, once some of the art guys they'll finish an asset, it gets handed over to someone else, and then when it's in, it's really a team effort to sort of bring it together, you know, and get on our screens modeling it to you driving it around in game or something like that. It's very much a team effort.
Chance is actually curious. Chance, one of our mappers, is in channel. He wants to know: did you go to uni for 3D art, or is it all self-taught? I mean, you talked kind of about a mentor here and there, but
so I started doing it before university, and then I really wanted to have a proper go at it. So I did a game design. Most of it really was self-taught before that. A lot of the best thing for this really, with a lot of the guys that stuff and I really looked up to, learned a lot from a lot of the people on the team, and you know, all the stuff's out there. Pick up this stuff. It's all out there on the internet if you want to pick it up yourself at all.
So what attracted you to kind of drawing, you know, vehicle models and things like that? Has it always been an interest, or are there other fields and things that you like to model with?
Yeah, so, you know, when I was a kid, I was always doing the plastic models and stuff like that, and hanging planes from the ceiling and stuff like that. So it's kind of, you know, just an extension of doing that kind of stuff. A little bit of character stuff. It's pretty terrible, so I haven't really spent any more time on that. But mostly just what we call like hard surface, sort of vehicles, guns, some environment stuff as well. Always trying to learn new stuff. Hard surface is mainly my my focus.
Right on. That's really cool. Do you have a particular faction? I know we have a lot of people on the team that really love Russian vehicles. Is there something that really gets you going?
Well, I'm enjoying doing some of the British stuff at the moment. So they're finally here. So channeling some patriotism to try and keep going with them. But yeah, no, it's really nice actually just doing a big variation of stuff. You know, doing completely different vehicles each time. It's very nice and keeps it fresh, just having something completely different from each other.
Right on. I'm curious, like, there are a lot of things that change over the course of a model and things that have to be kind of scaled back for optimization or to fit in a game. What is something that you kind of find really frustrating about what has to be adapted, or what is your most challenging aspect of trying to get something in game?
It's a good question. It's usually time is actually the biggest problem. Usually now is just the standard of games looking so good now. It's really finding ways to. We want the assets to look as good as they can. It's really just about finding ways to keep the workflow as fast as possible. So we're not just spending like a year doing like one amazing helicopter or something like that. It's got to keep a good production run going. But other than that, it's not too bad. Sometimes we have to go back and change stuff, but not really too much. We're getting a lot better at being forward thinking as well. And if there's some features that we might want to implement later, and we just kind of do some of the work on those vehicles now. So if we have to come back to it later, it's not a huge headache. Yeah, we're definitely getting better with that stuff as well. I kind of learned early on, just being like, oh yeah, we'll do that down the road. Like, we'll do that later, whatever. When you come back to it, if you've got to make edits to a vehicle or something like that, it's usually a big headache. So we're a bit more focused now on probably from the start.
What's your favorite piece of work in game that you've done? I mean, you talked about the Bradley, but you've been here a real long time, so.
I really enjoyed doing the SKS as well. That rifle, that was really fun for me. But yeah, definitely now. I haven't been able to play the last version too much, but I've seen a couple of Bradleys rolling by. It's like, yeah. So those guys, Anders did a really good job with the sounds, and the guys did it's enough thing. So it's a nice. It's really good to see it all come together.
Yeah, for sure, and it does sound like Anders is also a very talented actor. Everybody on the team is really talented. To see that come together is really amazing. We have Reptio asking, have we been continuing to use 3 model scans for future models, vehicles in specific? You may not know that,
but... So we don't... Well, we use them as a guide for vehicles so far, where you can... If anyone hasn't seen it, I can't remember which recap, but a few of us went to the Bombing and Tank Museum and scanned a few tanks. Which is just basically taking pictures all around the vehicle, computer program, a 3D model of it. And we've been using those as a guide to build our vehicles off. So you get a very accurate basically. So yes, personally, some of the stuff I've been doing now, I've gone on my way to try and photo scan those vehicles first before I do them. I know some of the environment guys do it for vegetation and stuff like that. We haven't really done anything with any uniforms or anything like that. Like I know Postscriptum did some of that. They scanned some uniforms.
Yeah, they did a really good job with some of the they actually went to a museum over there and went in and got with like pilot scarves down to the very nits. Yeah, I think the T-82, which we've just recently showed off, is one of the first models that we scanned that is going in game. That's rolling out now. It's actually really cool and it's coming along. So.
Yep.
Let's see. So we have some assets that you've been working on recently. If you kind of want to get into some of your, you have some things to show off. If you want to tell us about that before we flip over.
Yeah, if you've seen the last recap, what I'm working on currently is called the Bulldog, which is the British APC vehicle. That's just had in the mid-2000s. So it's an old vehicle, but it's had a ton of armor and stuff bolted onto it. And for squad, it's going to ground vehicle for the faction, a troop carrier. With good protection, but not too much armament. So it should work really well with the warriors we have in game, and it should be quite an interesting vehicle as well. Lots of armor, built for transporting the full squad around. Doesn't really have the firepower to do much offensively. Look forward to how it plays. Hopefully a very teamwork oriented vehicle. So yeah, just been cracking away at that one.
Yep, showing off a little bit of the screenshots you passed along here from the as we go through. I think we're looking at the one with the little bit of an armament on top.
So these ones as well. This was actually I did a photo scan of this one as well. I'm not sure if you might see the images here that say capturing reality or reality capture in the top corner. Those ones are actually a real vehicle that is 3D scanned, and basically built kit on top of this vehicle. So doing that 3D scan, it just eliminates any need for us to mess around with any blueprints. They're usually a bit iffy anyway, the sort of stuff you find online. You can just skip a huge reference package or anything like that, and you just have a template of the vehicle to work off. So it's definitely been a very useful for making these.
Yeah, that's a good question actually that we've had recent. I mean, came in via Facebook recently. How often do you use art assets in your work? Do you use anything from the asset store?
No, only not from the asset store, but there's a lot of kind of tools and stuff that we use, small programs, different texture packs and stuff from people potentially. It's usually all just done by us, really.
Yeah, no, and that is really cool. We do have teams of people in-house. We've done our own motion capture. We have some really, I mean, most of these are articles that you guys can read in the recaps. So it is cool to see that, yeah, most of this is being developed in-house, and it really does let us kind of take control and direct the future of Squad, which is wonderful. We've looked at the Bulldog. Do we want to take a look at some of your ArtStation stuff? I don't know if you have an order you'd prefer, if you just want to screen share and talk us through it.
I mean, I can't see what they're looking at, but
yeah, if you want to, you can screen share through Slack if you want, so you can probably just pull up.
Yeah, sure, I can do.
So yeah, while he's getting that up, we'll tell you guys a little bit about the free weekend that's currently ongoing. As you may know, it started yesterday, but 6/21. It's going to run through the weekend, Sunday 6/24. Obviously, Squad is free or free to play for the weekend. It'll be 40% off. The Steam sale is still obviously going on. If you can get out there, Squad Lead, do it. It's awesome. Make sure you're helping new players. We welcome them. We know it's a pretty stressful time. Squad's a little bit different, a little bit more old school compared to a lot of the games people are playing now. So yeah, we want to make sure that you get your mic on, ask your squad leader what you're doing, hop in, do what you can, and yeah, let us know. Give us your feedback. We want to hear it. We want to hear what you think about the game. We want to hear where you think the game should go. We are planning for release this year. We're on target for that. We still have to get tanks in game. We have choppers coming in. We're currently working on a suppression system. These are all kind of key components that will be going in after launch. We're talking about commander. We're talking about things like fire teams, stuff like that. And you can see Tim's now bringing his screen online. Hopefully, he will not share his dirty picture collection.
But no, these are just some of the stuff I've done for Squad before. You can see, you guys, if you play in game and stuff, you'll recognize most of these, I think. The PKM. You guys seen it if you play Squad?
Yeah, that is especially one that came in, and I think it was V10 when we released GPMGs, and that was just brutal. It came in with I think it was Balaya, that pass just coming down that hill. Still have nightmares about that weapon.
Yeah, one of our other artists, Harry, did the GPMG, the kind of counterpart to this one. It was a really nice, very good for us to do both of them at the same time, and really trying to race to get them done. Glad we got them done as well, because I think they changed the game quite nicely with the squad members having a bit more firepower.
Yeah, it's absolutely added a lot more tactical variety, and that's kind of one of the really cool things about the systems we've been adding recently, is they really do change the game so much. I mean, we did like the weapon pass overhaul. Obviously, IFVs were huge. Tanks are coming, so yeah. Where do you get your references for weapons like this? I mean, I don't know. Obviously, you're probably not packing your own PKPs and SKSs around the office, but where are you picking up like your inspirations?
No, it's all just found online for the most part. Sometimes we'll have very kind community members that go to ranges or just own some of these that I might get a PM or we'll chase them down if I see them posting stuff with this and just ask if they could take any close-ups. But really, it's just a lot of trawling kind of YouTube and a lot of gun forums where people have, field stripped them and disassembled them all, got them all out, and discussing them at length. So you have to spend quite long hours collecting a lot of pictures and stuff. So it can be a pain. Some of the stuff's quite obscure, and it's quite hard to find stuff for. But we also have military advisors on the team that help us out quite a lot. So yeah, nothing's ever too bad, but some obscure stuff can be quite hard to find references for.
Right on. How often do you actually get to the fire whip? I know we've had the range days and stuff, but do you ever get a chance to go out and play with some of the hardware that we have in game?
Unfortunately, not really. We did in the last off-world trip. We did go to a shooting range and had some fun. I've only ever done some clay pigeon shooting in the UK before, just with some shotguns. Other than that, no, not really. I do have some demilitarized rifle. I bought that stuff just to study one of the ones I was making and some things like that. So you can obtain some of these in the UK. Demilitary. Well,
deactivated.
Sorry, that's the one I was looking for. Deactivated stuff. So if there's something really you want it to be precision accurate with, you can always find it.
Right on. That's really cool. I mean, I know Airsoft is kind of a big inspiration for a lot of the guys too, and that gets picked up more in there. I mean, people have seen the Squad BR modding streams where every bit of Airsoft can come out.
Airsoft's actually a big problem for us, really. A lot of the times when you look for references of guns, you chase down a rabbit hole of, you start making something, and then slowly you'll realize it's actually an airsoft rifle, or someone, they've hidden part of it. So you just see a receiver or something like that, and it turns out it's actually an airsoft one. So it's can actually be quite an annoying thing. A lot of the reproductions of them can lead you down a bit of a rabbit hole going the wrong way, but.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. That's not something I ever even really thought about. And yeah, there are lots of reproductions out there and surplus mock-ups and things that have been made for games, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, we try to be as accurate as we can with most of this stuff.
This is a little bit far afield of Squad, but I was curious. Do you ever apply your work to 3D printing? Is that a technology that you've gotten into at all?
No, I really would like a 3D printer. I know Morgan, Suicidal Chair, had one. On the off-world team as well, but no, I would really quite like to try sometime. I'm not sure the process too much because I haven't played with it, of setting up stuff so it prints well. But I think I'm gonna get one and just mess around with doing some of that stuff.
Right on. Uzgu had a question for you, which is a pretty easy one. Are you in the office? And if not, can you kind of tell us what your work office environment is like?
Well, no. All the art teams remote. Mostly they're programmers and a few other guys that are in the office in Canada. This is remote. I'm here in the UK. Our department's all around, really.
Yeah, we're
about once or twice a year, but no one else from the art teams in the office.
Yeah, we are a pretty worldwide team. We just moved into a new office in Vancouver. You might have seen some in the last SquadChat. We're New Westminster, somewhere right around there. Not quite in Vancouver, but nearby. But yeah, otherwise, you could pretty much pick a time zone and probably find a squad developer in it around the world. We have, and that includes the military advisors, and so it is a truly international team. And I think, if I had to guess, maybe 20% of the people are in the office. And yeah, people do go in to visit, and we do try to get the team together periodically so they can work together. But yeah, we do have a distributed team, and it is really cool because that does allow us to access people around the world that have all sorts of experiences, and when you're recreating some realistic things in game, that is absolutely a boon. There was a question from Lang Pascal. Do you think we'll ever see an HD texture pack for Squad in the future? So maybe something as optional DLC?
Right. Potentially. I think it'd more likely just be an option in game to run like 4K textures, but I don't think it's very likely. It's quite hard to. I'm sure some of you guys will see with the streaming pool and stuff before, where you might textures not loaded or something in game. So and we have to be quite careful of running too many large textures. Maybe down the road, as technology gets better, there'll be options for that, but I think it's a little bit unlikely.
Yeah, and I'd say a lot of that, we're eking out more and more performance and maps and kind of going back and looking over old things and looking at that. So the more we can gain there, the more likely we are to be able to kind of expand large textures and things like that. But yeah, that'd probably be a post-release thing if we do get around to it. It's something, obviously, we want the game to look more and more beautiful, so we'd love to do that.
And we do make everything. Everything's made at a 4K texture. And usually it'll have to come down to for performance. Always there, if the headroom comes available to go back up. So we'll see.
Oh yeah, that's actually kind of cool. Is there any unique requirements for working on Squad compared to any other projects you've had? Is there something that makes Squad unique in the art department?
Not too much, I don't think. There's nothing. Unreal Engine's pretty by a lot of companies and stuff like that. There's no kind of weird do. So sometimes you get sort of voodoo setups to make stuff work in game, but it's pretty half of game development. So nothing's. It's nice to work with. Really, the engine. It's.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I was actually fascinated to learn that Squad actually started on Unity for like 2 weeks before the Unreal Engine came out and we made the flip.
Right.
Reptio has a question. Will tessellation displacement mapping be a more prominent part in the future textures and maps?
That's more for the environment guys, really. It's kind of their thing. But possibly if as the terrain and stuff improves, you're more likely to see some of that stuff. There were some problems with the tessellation with AMD stuff before, so I'm not sure. Like that's more for the environment guys. So it's kind of their realm. With the vehicles and stuff, we don't really use much tessellation, wheels and stuff, but really our stuff's 3D to start with for the most part. It's not a technique we use too much.
Right on. Yeah, and I think that is something that we've been looking forward to, especially as we've been testing some of the new Ryzen performances in the office, and it's showing positive results. So hopefully that might be something that we can experiment more with in the future. Chance would like to know, what's something you've created in the past that you'd like to have in Squad?
I've had a lot of fun doing a lot of World War II vehicles before, but the Postscriptum guys are absolutely killing that. There's a lot of stuff I'm looking forward to, but stuff I've made before. I did some of the Australian stuff for Project Reality that I'm not sure ever came to fruition. So it'd be nice to see some of those guys again. I really enjoyed all the different countries in that game, so it'd be cool to see Australian faction and a lot of mod factions stuff.
I feel like you might just be talking directly to Chance on that one with his Australian nature. Jay Jordog has a question. Can you give an example of a time or a project that has given you a lot of trouble that you were able to overcome and how you did it? And then we will go on to the next phase of the interview where you test your hard skills.
Something I struggle with. Not really. A bit of pain, I guess, when it did the MTLB. That was the first track vehicle. Stuff up. Yeah, because we're just kind of learning which way we're going to go with a lot of stuff. I learned a lot from that project as well. A lot of guys sort of good lessons on how to do stuff. So yeah, the MTLB was a big learning curve for me. Really, after that, it's been a bit more smooth sailing.
So are you more of a vehicle player once you're in squad? Do you take up the squad leader role? What do you like to play?
Mostly squad leader. Not because I enjoy it too much, but usually just the guys I play with grumble and no one wants to do it or play medic or anything like that. So it's usually what I end up doing. Yeah, squad leader. I like doing the vehicles as well, but usually squad leading. Jobs.
If you could give them a tip for, if you could give any newbies a tip right now, what's the one thing that you would kind of advise them to do once they get in the game to make squad more fun?
People just tell the guys in your squad that you just picked it up. 9 times out of 10, you'll find a lot of people are very willing to be kind to you, and just yeah, sometimes it takes a while to learn how a thing works. Be a little bit brutal to start with, but yeah, just tell people you're new, ask questions. Times out of 10, you'll have really good people that are willing to help you and show you the ropes.
What would be like the scariest vehicle you'd want to add to squad? Something that doesn't necessarily have to fit into squad's motif, but your idea of like the dream death trap.
I think like a jet or a hind or some kind of helicopter lad. Just be. I know Anders and Bruno would do a really those things scary as hell with their effects and sounds, but we'll see if we ever get to that kind of stage. Yeah, so I'm really excited for the helicopters. Wait for that stuff.
Yeah, both Hind and Apache have been some of my favorite games in the past for people that go back to the 486 era. Really good games. Did you do a lot of flying in Battlefield? Is it something that there was mostly transport choppers. I think we've all played Mash Tier to death, but
yeah. Matt, when I started playing in the tournament early on in Project Reality, at that point it was just Battlefield 2 with very few small changes really. And our tactic on Mushto was just one guy would fly the transport helicopter real high, and we'd just parachute continually on flags, spawning on that guy. But yeah, I've always loved doing the helicopters in Battlefield and Project Reality. A lot of the jets as well, flying that stuff. A lot of pressure when you're flying the jets and stuff like that. A lot of people watching you crash on a runway and calling you a noob. So it's good
you
fun.
were on the stage for sure.
Yeah. It's a jet though, and he respawns like every 20 minutes or something like that, and you feel your palms getting sweaty when you take it off. Whatever, you feel the responsibility. That stuff though.
Do you have a robust gaming setup or anything? We're talking about flight sticks. Do you have anything kind of to help immerse that way?
Pretty basic joystick and a track AR. And kind of VR stuff yet, but possibly in the future.
Right on. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of BR set up either, but I know we have, like, Chris has made some BR games. People are looking at it, and it's really kind of starting to come along. Going back to VR, virtual reality, Project Reality. If you could bring something that's not in Squad from Project Reality, what would you bring over? Mechanically, art, whatever you want.
Yeah, it's probably a few things. Thing for us, Project Reality, we just started the game with a full art catalog. Having the aircraft carriers and all that stuff was just such a huge making the mod. Being able to, I've seen a few of the community guys made an aircraft carrier and did the Gulf of Oman map, which looks really good. So I'd love to have love the naval invasion maps based off carriers.
Yeah, that might have been made by Farstan. I think Friendly Nikolai was a videographer on that. There's been some really good videos lately. If you want
those guys are killing it.
Reptio wants to know, what was your favorite model to make and why?
Favorite, possibly the SPG, just because it's just a big tube. Just do a big tube and then small details on top of that, and is very quick to make. was quite a fun one. That was a very, very quick one to make. Can be a bit of a meat grinder with lots of small details and just, especially that way, lots of small bolts and can take a while. Usually the guns are the because they're quite a lot quicker than vehicles, so it's quite refreshing to come back and do a weapon.
Right on. So, like, weapons are kind of
stuff.
at the easy end of the scale. And how long would it take to do something like the Bradley? I mean, I assume that had to be probably months.
Yeah, that ended up being a few months, but typically we're working on two things. Well, so there's like one main project, and then you will have like a second task that's a lot less important, but it's nice to flip between the two, so you can do something a lot simpler, to keep your motivation up and everything. Well, if you're working on one long task, it can become a bit of a mountain. A smaller weapon or something like a grenade or binoculars or something like that you can just do in a few days. Stuff they're really nice to sort of come back to and just those pretty quickly.
Right on. Yeah, I never I always just kind of assumed you would obsess over one model. I don't know why I would assume nobody would take breaks and work on other stuff. So it's really kind of cool to hear that part of your process. Right. Speaking of, Uzgu has kind of another question along those lines. Do you artists work together on an asset, or do you work alone? Do you pass it on? What is the usual workflow and steps for just creating a brand new asset? You did talk about it briefly, but he's kind of curious.
It really depends. Some stuff, probably the majority of stuff, is just one guy from start to finish. There's been quite a lot of stuff that's someone will start it, and it gets put on their back burner for whatever reason. Someone else becomes free for a task, and someone else has something that needs finishing. So there are quite a lot of cooperative efforts. Typically, sometimes it'll be one guy models something, and someone else textures it. Usually it's one guy start to finish for the most part.
That's kind of cool. It does kind of give you a lot of in-depth control of your vision, and which is really cool when you're going into a project that is really as big as Squad and has a lot of driving vision behind it.
Definitely.
Sorry, I cannot necessarily read the name. YIITV wants to know: do the artists have some involvement when it comes to optimization? Is optimization a thing you kind of follow along with as you build a model?
Yes, to an extent. It's we have to keep the amount of textures we use down, so make one of these vehicles just look absolutely stunning by just breaking it into like 10 4K huge textures, but you're just kind of blowing away the memory budget by doing that sort of stuff. So you do have to be quite conscious of stuff, of how many materials you're using, how many texture sheets you're using. Counts sort of less important than we still have to be mindful and make LODs and levels of details. So the further you get away from an object, it progressively gets lower detail. Those will have to be made. It is, but you're more likely to see FPS improvements sort of under the hood, so to speak, of fundamentally how the game runs than us cutting a load of polygons out. We do have to do some optimization. Definitely, it's more with materials and textures, especially kind of with Unreal Engine.
So when you're doing something like the adaptive level of detail stuff, or where are you effectively making 3 versions of the model? Is it 3 times the work? Are you just kind of tweaking down? Or?
Yeah, so you'll start with your highest quality one, the one that you'll see when you're right next to an object. And then from there, you just basically, it's a clone of that, and then you remove some. So that's the one you're closest to is what we call LOD 0, when you're immediately next to the vehicle. And as you walk away, it'll become to LOD 1, which is what we use for if you use low graphics. So there'll be some reduction in detail, but yeah, we're quite careful that you want it so it's not really perceivable, like a big change in the object. Then after that, as you get further, it becomes a smaller speck on your screen, and you can be very aggressive with removing detail on it. So we usually the first two, you spend a bit of time on making them it's not perceivable as you get further away that the object's changing too much. I mean, we've all seen it in games and stuff where you'll load in or something and a house is just like a cube, and then it'll load in and become, how it's supposed to look. A system will work.
Cool. Yeah, I mean that's often something that like you don't necessarily think of as a system that's working, but that is how often we see. Like it is a really cool thing to kind of watch those models load up. You seem to have killed Xeno in chat with, and all he has put is overdraw and the emoticon not like this. Could you maybe tell us what overdraw is and why that might kill Xeno?
I'm not sure what exactly he's referring to, but overdraw is just is problems with transparency. But that's more stuff with grass and trees and stuff like that. The kind of my department. But yeah, it's a performance problem basically.
Cool. And Uzgo has another question. We've kind of touched on this a little bit, but how long do you work on a new asset? Like, how long before do you? I mean, I know it's going to vary a little bit, but like, how long would you say it takes before you're ready to show it to somebody else?
We try and actually share stuff pretty early on with each other internally. It's always good and quite motivating to see what everyone's doing and really see projects at the start, and you kind of get an idea of what direction they're going to end up at, what direction they're going with. So usually it's just a process of gathering all your resources. It can be a day or two really at the start of just trying to find it's a lot of reading usually on or something like that, finding that you're making the correct thing. Have a lot of these vehicles just have small changes, quite subtle stuff, and there will always be people that depth and remind you of it if you make a mistake. So like this, they go reading. If you can see that, it's just a picture of a book on the APC I'm doing now. So it's all like really kind of stuff of like engine and blah 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 blah. So a lot of reference gathering, finding out you're making the right thing, basically. Quick block out, usually. Dimensions ballparked. If you got to make a vehicle, you can make a quick block out to make sure you've got the right sizes for everything early on, because it can be very problematic. You have to come back to something later when you put a bunch of detail on the canvas and you find out that your vehicle is actually a meter short and it's been squashed slightly or something like that, and it becomes a real pain to go back and change stuff. So yeah, that's usually the process. It's usually a few days, kind of starting reference gathering, a block out. What we do is like the high poly mesh, which is the high detail version, which you guys will usually see in renders and stuff on the recap. Usually they're kind of silver or clay. They're not the texture ones you see in game. We make everything 3D on those. But after you've completed that can take a month or two. It can take quite a while to complete that fully. We make the low poly mesh or the game res mesh. Lots of different names for it, but this is the one you'll see in game. This is a low detail one, and we use the high poly mesh. Transfer the details. There's something called baking, which projects rays, with normal maps, etc. And then so you got this game res mesh. And after that, we got to do all the texturing and then the setup. So there's quite a long process of from start to finish of different elements of it.
Right on. Silent Blood was curious. He's one of the prominent modders in the community. He's done some really awesome work. I see you guys do not use material blends and vertex painting. Why is that?
Sure, specifically what you mean, but vertex painting, You know, we could do that on some of the assets, but typically I don't think we've really felt the need to do too much stuff on the hard surface stuff with too much vertex painting. But a lot of it, you know, the environment stuff all uses that. Yeah, you know, there's definitely a lot of room to improve with kind of nicer, you know, quality of life stuff, but it's not a huge concern for us.
Right on. Since tanks are coming out, this is a question from the Griggs, by the way. And they noticed that they were 3D scanned. How does one go about scanning a real life tank? And do we get a small model and scan it? We kind of touched upon this earlier with the tank trip, but that is a really kind of good question. How do you scan a tank?
You take a lot of pictures. I think about 350, 400 photos is probably about what you need of every angle you want to capture. It's just literally walking around with a camera. You need about 80% overlap on your photos. So it's just quite a tedious process of just taking a picture, moving a little bit, taking a picture, moving a little bit. At Bovington, we made a very janky ladder rig with some gaffer tape and a camera and a tripod on top, and so we could get because you know these some of these tanks are very big, and you've got to cover all the top. So yeah, that can be the most challenging stuff. Is just actually being able to get the access to take pictures. A lot of like if you want to go and scan some of these vehicles, a lot of time they're parked against each other and stuff, and you'll never be able to capture some areas. So we got lucky with quite a lot of that. Lighting can be another problem. Bright daylight, very bright sunlight can be a bit of a problem. So you got to do some setup to make sure you get a good capture. It's definitely worth doing. I think basically eliminate your gathering and block out stage of the work. Really, just create the real thing right there. Bring it into our 3D program, and it's just there right in front of you, and you can just build off, basically.
Oh, that's awesome. So it kind of gets you into a whole another phase. That's really cool.
Right.
Reptio kind of has a follow-up to that. It's sort of related. Is it complicated to transfer the size of models one-to-one in-game? Like, how difficult is it to get that scale right?
The thing is, usually you'll just work off an existing build, right? So you can take you can you know, use an existing export scene or bring something back out of the game to make sure, but it can be a bit of a problem. There's usually quite a bit of tweaking involved when something like that, and if you're looking at the player holding it, and it can be quite hard. Something just looks off, and you've got it sort of 1% scaled too large or small. Same with vehicles. Sometimes you might do the dimensions and everything like that to Wikipedia or something, but then it gets in game and it might look too small with people standing next to it. Sometimes it's just kind of a little bit of a feel thing if something looks a bit weird, but 9 times out of 10 we try to be accurate with all of it. But you got to understand that in game has to kind of be right as well. So, you know, it can be a bit tricky with the scale stuff. It's something not too much, but it can be a bit of a problem.
Yeah, Chuck's in the chat with us too, and added that a lot of the scaling.
Yeah, he'll know more than anyone.
Yeah, he adds that a lot of the animation team does, especially weapons, will help with scaling too. And yeah, if you're not aware, Chuck has been on with us in the past. He's joined us for a squad chat, but he is kind of very much our sort of patronus in terms of squad. Oh, yeah, now we have Ross as well. Sergeant Ross says technical documentations from the design team. So yeah, there really isn't any part of squad that isn't touched by kind of every other part of squad. It really is a team effort. Yeah. And like, I mean, you even mentioned working alongside Harry on 2 different weapons that were very similar, where like, yeah, that is, you are pushing each other and you are making sure that like the specs are right. And
yeah,
you know, you pulled up the manual for the Bulldog you're working on. Like, it's really not uncommon for about once a week somebody rolls in with some new obscure Russian hardware manual. There, you know, like somebody was, I think, modeling the firing switch toggle between like, you know, high explosive and armor piercing rounds in one of like the BTRs or something. Like it is a very robust and dedicated team that is putting a lot of the stuff together. And yeah, guys
will definitely sort of hold us accountable for getting stuff right as well. It can't be perfect all the time. Some stuff slips through. It's just the nature of, we're not completely versed in the production of every single vehicle or weapon ever. It's not always perfect, but we definitely try our hardest to. There is a very conscious effort to get stuff as accurate as possible.
Yeah, as Russ put it, the amount of man hours done on historical and present day research is crazy, and that's above and beyond the people that have actively served and crewed these vehicles and weapons too, that are, fully trained experts. It's going above and beyond to make sure that even they're satisfied. Yeah.
Right.
Do you have any tips for wannabe squad leaders? That was kind of you had mentioned that you're an unwilling squad leader, so you should have some pretty good insight into what it's like to fight tooth and nail to make people work.
Yeah, definitely. Just finding a good group of guys to play with is really the key, I think, as well. If you have a good round with a bunch of guys, especially if you've got guys that want to play the medic and are just really good to get on with, just add them on Steam when they're playing and try and buddy up with them. Once you got a few core really good guys, it's a lot more plain sailing to just go in and have a really good time. Yeah, if you have good experience with guys, don't be afraid to just add them on Steam, chat to them, and in the future.
Yeah, and that's another good point. If you're enjoying a server, make sure you note the server name down and go back there, and people will start to recognize you. And that's a lot of getting into a good game, is just starting to recognize people and knowing how they play. Guzgo has another question. What would you give aspiring squad modders? What tips would you give aspiring squad modders? How would somebody get a 3D model into Squad if they wanted to start today? What would you recommend?
That's a really good question, actually. Sticking out a project and trying to see it through from start to finish is really the key. We've all done stuff where it's like, just kind of on a whim. I really like to do this. You start it, wanes. A lot of people are like, oh, that's a cool model or whatever, but it just never gets finished when you kind of get to the hard part. Stuff's kind of the Achilles of a lot of the mods. Very high motivation in the start, and it can just fizzle out a bit. So really, if you want to get into the modding, I'd say look for an established team, because that can just boost your motivation no end. Some other factions going for score as well. The guys working on French forces and Finnish forces. A load of other guys doing different factions. I'd say it's really good to get in with those guys and get a feel for being in a team structure as well. Gives you a better idea of the process of just starting whatever you want to make and going from start to finish. Usually in those teams, there's people that can help you answer questions for you. It's a lot easier than kind of going at your own. Try and stick with projects and see them through to the end is the key, really.
Yeah, consistency is very important, and like you said, working with a team. We have a community modding server where you can join in and actually meet some of those teams. Squad Mod France is one you mentioned. They're really awesome. They're doing some great stuff. There's a South African Army mod coming out.
Right.
Yeah, like it is. You're going to be working on a team as an artist. There's no better time to start now. And yeah, like we have the Squad Community Hub, Squad Modding Discord. These are places you can kind of come in and talk to people including developers that are actually working on the projects now. And yeah, like there is a lot of talent in the community. There's a lot of people that are very willing to talk. So ask questions, pitch ideas, see what's going on, check out the workshop. These are all like really great ways to kind of poke at it. You've mentioned 3ds Max. There's kind of an amazing standby for the last 20 or 30 years in graphical development. Like there's good places online that you can take courses on that. There's free courses out there.
Yeah, there's a ton of free programs as well if you want to get into the 3D stuff. Blender is pretty much the staple. Just Google it. Free 3D programs. There's loads of stuff out there now. And if you're a student, a lot of this stuff has student licenses as well. Get in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, check with your university. Look for student discounts. You can save hundreds of dollars. It's a very good place to look.
Fundamentally as well, a lot of the stuff you'll learn with one program, another program. Once you kind of learn the process, it's kind of basis of how it all works is more important than the UI of one program. So a lot of it can see it jump in between programs. It can see a little bit challenging, but once you kind of know fundamentally what's going on, it's not too much of a big deal.
Right on. Well, thank you. We're coming up on about an hour. I'd like to at least pitch it open to you, see if there's anything you'd like to add. Is there anything that you'd like to, encourage people to check out? Any questions for the community, perhaps?
Oh, I'd definitely say go and check out the modding Discord. If you're a regular player, check out some of the maps. Can have a hard time getting their maps played. And if you've played a lot of Squad and you're looking for something a bit new as well, new maps, go and check out what they're doing. Sometimes they run events and you can go and jump on a brand new map, a new mod, stuff like that. So definitely check it out. Pretty much that.
Yeah, check out the Squad modding roundup. I think Level.gg is running some modding events this weekend. There's pretty consistent events going on. If you want to check out mods, there is a community modding server that does run and test some mods. And last but not least, Chance would like to know, when is the Aussie faction coming?
Wow, that's it. I'll be there to help him, but he's got to make some maps for it first. Right.
Got to pull some favors in first, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure to have you, and absolutely fascinating. And I'm sure we'll have you back again, and look forward to maybe getting you in there with Harry, so you can kind of compete and see who.
Yeah, be good.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. Just a quick reminder that we do have a free weekend, and Squad is currently 40% off. Head out there, play, join us in Discord. Let us know what you think. It's been a pleasure having you. We'll have this archived on Twitch and YouTube for your enjoyment later. And, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Ooh.